from the Department of Human Services leadership team, and then we have several bills to be heard from members. I want to make sure that we get through our agenda today. So before we begin, I want to remind members the focus about why the department is here today. And it's to talk about the issue that we all care deeply about, which is the continuity of care. So members, please remember to keep those discussions today focused on that core topic. It's what we all as a group were talking about, you know, especially last week. It was really, can we get assurances of continuity of care? And that's where hopefully we want to remind us to stay focused on that. So the bill presentation later on is going to focus on how we strengthen the continuity care protections to ensure that Minnesotans who rely on the department programs don't have their care disrupted as we take steps to protect the program integrity that this committee has talked about. And with that, members, Lead Jordan, if you have anything to add to that. If not, we'll just go right to the Department of Leaders today to give us what we care about. And Commissioner, just the thing that I've heard from members of this committee over and over and over, assurance, the continuity care assurance that the people with disabilities and the people that are receiving the services are being talked about, right? It's that filter. And so this is hopefully the conversation today that we're having with you, and the two folks to your right and to the left will be about that. And with you, I think, is Director Connolly. I keep calling you Director Connolly, I'm sorry.
That works.
All right.
He's Medicaid Director and Deputy Commissioner.
Medicaid Director and Deputy Commissioner, former LA County, yes, John Connolly, the Iowa connection there. And then James Clark, right, the OIG. Correct. So Commissioner, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman and members of the committee. My name is Shireen Gandhi, and I have the honor of serving as the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Our leadership team is here today to assure you that we are working very hard at DHS on continuity of care. As you know, we have a county-administered system, and so we need to work in collaboration with many others to support people in community to have continuity of care, especially if it is interrupted by fraud or payment withholds from the Inspector General's office. And I've been in front of this committee before presenting on the numbers and the ways that we work with county case managers, and want you to know that we're not stopping there, that it is important for us to continue to refine our approach, because we have to balance both rooting out fraud and making sure people have access to the services that they deserve. At the end of the day, what's most important for us is the outcomes of the people that we're serving in Minnesota, and that the system is working for them. That is the top priority for us at DHS, and to make sure that every dollar from the taxpayers is working hard and going to those people that need those services and have been approved for those services. So we will continue to work with the counties, because DHS oversees the system and we're ultimately accountable to make sure that that continuity of care is working. And what I would like to do is have Deputy Commissioner Connolly share with you a bit more about the specific steps that we're taking to make sure that the system continues to work better and better for the people each day.
Thank you, Commissioner. And members, what we'll do is we'll wait till everybody's done with the conversations, and then we'll get a list of questions around that. And Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner Connolly, focus not so much on the process. I mean, if you know, we can talk process all day long, but all we really are looking at is the assurance that somebody with a disability is receiving those services, because the anecdotal stories and system stories that this committee is hearing is absolutely what you can feel my passion about the fact that I just need assurance, right? And the whole committee needs assurance. We as a committee need assurance. So with that, Deputy Commissioner Connolly.
Chair Hoffman, members of the committee, John Connolly, Deputy Commissioner and State Medicaid Director at the Minnesota Department of Human Services. And responding directly to I think your concerns and the different anecdotes that you've heard here in committee from providers and community members, we can describe a few different things that will speak to some of these difficult situations and the efforts that we're putting forward to wrap around lead agencies, counties, and others and providers to make sure that folks do have that continuity of care and a safe transition. So above and beyond the process that we've outlined in previous appearances or testimony here, there are two different teams that we have working on continuity of care specifically with respect to ICS, integrated community supports, and the impacts or reverberations on people who are in provider settings that have a payment withhold in relationship to program integrity concerns. The first is the Regional Resource Specialist Team, and this is a pre-existing group of folks who exist to support lead agencies, specifically counties and others, to help folks transition or find placement. Their traditional role has been more one of consultation, so that if a waiver case manager needs assistance finding different providers of different services, if somebody's, again, in a setting where there is a payment withhold and they need referral or connection, they're there to help consult with them to find that array of service providers that help folks have that continuity of care and make sure that the treatment or care plan is executed according to what's been put in place. The second piece, given the concerns that you all have heard and that we've heard as well from the community and providers, is providing more direct support in situations where a waiver case manager has difficulty finding housing, has difficulty finding other providers of integrated community supports, or broader home and community-based services or mental health services if that's needed. And so what we did is take a portion of the team that was really working on complex transitions from hospital or institutional settings to the community and taking basically 1.5 full-time equivalent employees and having them work specifically on this issue, such that if a waiver case manager is having difficulty finding another array of providers, another setting, another housing placement for somebody who is experiencing some interruption of service as a result of a payment withhold, that we're directly engaging. Our staff are working with the case managers directly, looking for again, a housing placement, looking for another service provider if the county waiver case manager, as an example, is having trouble with that. And we've done that specifically with a number of referrals in Hennepin, Ramsey, Dakota County as well, and intervened in some of those cases, as well as in Oka County, where there have been issues with a case manager having difficulty finding another placement for folks.
Can I just get clarification? I promise not to interrupt, but when you say case manager, are you talking about the lead agency case manager or are you putting case manager as one big bucket of case managers, or are you referring specifically to the lead agency, the person that's in charge of that case management of an individual or individuals?
So in this case, it would be our regional resource specialists or our complex transitions team working with case managers who are doing the frontline work within the lead agencies. So it wouldn't be the commissioner or I, talking to leadership in human services in the counties. So that's a good question. I appreciate that. And the last thing I'll say, in addition to the two teams that we're leveraging to do the work, is also at a more policy leadership level, convening with our colleagues and friends at Minnesota Housing, as well as leaders within county governments, to think about housing capacity and how we can leverage additional housing capacity, perhaps through the housing support program or otherwise, to create more capacity for people who have home and community-based service needs and people with disabilities. So that's on a more policy and planning forward level, but those are the three major efforts that we're engaged in to respond to this issue.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. And to that, Inspector General, did you want to add to anything that the Commissioner has said before we go to some questions from staff here and committee members?
No, Chair, I don't have any introductory remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me Chair and not Honorable Judge or whatever was the first time you got. That was supposed to be funny. I can't believe it.
I got it.
That's good.
I laughed.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the leadership team for the Department of Human Services being here today. Mr. Chair, as you know, one of an item that I'm working on is to try to get an unredacted opt-in report to members of this committee so that we can benefit from the insights from this report. And so, Mr. Chair, my question to the commissioner is, would the Department of Human Services be willing to give members of this committee access to an unredacted opt-in report?
Madam Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, thank you for that question. Yes, I am not willing to break Minnesota state law, so the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act doesn't allow us to release security data, but I have shared a letter with the legislators through Christy Grom, our director, that I am in support of legislation I think that's moving that would allow DHS to share that unredacted report with legislators. There's just no mechanism for us to share it with the public, and the way the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act works, it treats the legislators as the public.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to follow up, Commissioner, the bill that passed the Minnesota House, you're supportive of, you think that that's workable?
Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, I'd have to look at it. I would rely on my legislative director. I haven't looked at what just passed, but I believe that what passed was for the legislature to have access to it, and that there are requirements or it's stipulated that the legislators would not share the private data. And yes, I would be supportive of that.
Was that your companion? Or was that your companion? It was yours?
Yep.
So Senator Rasmussen, as a follow-up, then Senator Zainab wants to go to that point, and then we go to Senator Abeler. So Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. But I just want to drill in on a point, because the Department of Human Services decided to redact the report. Like when I open up the report and I turn to the pages on vulnerabilities, it's all redacted. You can't read a single bullet point. When I turn to the section on policy recommendations, almost all of it is redacted. And Mr. Chair and Commissioner, that was a decision that was made by Department of Human Services staff to redact this under Chapter 13. And that was a decision that the department made, and they could also make the decision to unredact information to be made available to this committee and the public.
Yeah, I think what I heard, Chapter 13 or there's some state statute, and I heard the commissioner allude to that. But if it sounds like if the bill that is your companion is moved its way in, I think we also added that same companion bill to Senator Zainab Mohammed's bill. But yours, I think we didn't go to the floor on yours. I think we sent it to Senator Wickland's committee, and then hopefully to get it back here. So I guess it sounds like the process is happening, and you want to, Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My point is Minnesota taxpayers paid for this report. I think they should have access to the key findings and policy recommendations contained in the report. We have legislative auditor reports. We'll have another one tomorrow that gives us unredacted information about system vulnerabilities and policy recommendations. And so the big question I have is I don't know why the Department of Human Services has effectively made this report useless to members of this committee. And when we're in a session when Minnesotans are concerned about program integrity, they're concerned about fraud, and we don't have access to the policy recommendations that the governor has access to, that's something that concerns me. There's a lot of different ways we can get to this information, but we just ask that the department and members of the legislature move with urgency, because we have a limited amount of time to be able to process this information and to turn it into potential new laws.
Message delivered, and I think you have agreement from everybody in this committee. That's what we wanted in order to make policy. And yet, when we talk about that, we don't want to lose aspect of the fact that we want to assure that whatever decisions are being made, that it's the people that are supposed to be, the people that waived their right to be institutionalized care, right? Home and community-based service. The people that the Supreme Court in 1998 said you have a right to be in the community, you have a right to have a job in the community, you have a right to live in the community, right? It's almost like we want to have those assurance in there. And so what I think everybody on this committee is absolutely in agreement with you on what you just brought up. And so thank you for bringing that up once again. And I guess we'll go to Zainab, Senator Mohammed, because she wanted to add to your point. Senator Mohammed.
I think it was more so of like a question for me, because this report has been coming up so much in this committee and in the House. Can you maybe just tell us why some of it is redacted? I think it's important for the body to know.
Madam Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Mohammed, thank you for the question. Two of the reports DHS redacted. One of the reports, it's the CES report, Optum redacted as trade secret. So they have certain codes that they use, and so they redacted that portion. It was our staff, our data privacy office, and attorneys that looked at it and determined what they thought was security data and could be used to exploit vulnerabilities in our system until we have them closed. So very much want to work with the legislators. I have theoretically, without the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, I have no problem sharing that data with legislators. You are our partners in strengthening the program. However, we need a mechanism to do that without forecasting our weaknesses before we're able to close them.
Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you, Commissioner, for saying that, because I think it's become such a political thing for this body. I do think legislators should have access to seeing it, as long as there's some privacy and some guardrails around it, because a lot of the loopholes within the agency are not closed, and we know that they're still vulnerable to fraudsters, and we want to protect those. And so I hope that we can find something that works where we are able to have access to it, so that we can bring policies to close some of those loopholes as well. I think that's why this body needs it, so that we can help you close the loopholes.
Yeah, and to that point, I think it's also the OLA understands why some of the stuff was redacted, right? Sometimes policy recommendations aren't necessarily statutory policy recommendations, but internal policy recommendations. I mean, you guys we're having the right conversation. It's like, where do we go from there? Sometimes the systems and the administration, the DHS part is part of that. So Senator Abeler, to those points.
Well, thanks, and just to beat the dog to death, I guess. Just have a question. Is the OLA allowed to see this report? They're
Chair Hoffman.
proprietary things.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler. Yes, we provided the unredacted report to the OLA.
Oh,
Senator Abeler.
well, that's a good idea. It's a start. Anyway, so I have a couple of questions, and thanks for that. And if that was the only problem you guys had, or challenge, you know, I think when they were interviewing you for the job, now Commissioner, the governor said, would you like an interesting task? You know, sometimes you get a little bored in your tasks that you have to do. And he said, oh, what job would that be? Anyway, so in the discussions in the past, I only have a couple of questions. I could take up the rest of the hour, but I think the chair would be unhappy with me. The safe transitions deal, I'm not sure if you're aware, the Ombudsman for Disabilities came forward, and they were attributing potentially 4 deaths and uncounted amounts of homelessness and other challenges. I'm sure you have seen that document they put out. They're not a particularly political entity. They're just trying to figure out what's going on. And you or whoever, I've talked about a safe transitions program.
Yeah.
And I'm sure none of those are results you're after. And so how's that going, the Safe Transitions Program? So there's a number of people. I'm going to ask about how many people are in suspension with their payments, my next question. But so of these multi-hundreds of people who are now not getting paid, who are unable to serve their clients, how are you looking after them?
You know what, and I'm glad you brought up that point from that presentation, because when it showed that, it also showed there was some uncertainty in that, and so that's thank you for bringing that up.
Perhaps we can clear up the uncertainty. This may be our chance.
This is it, Commissioner, to Senator Abeler.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler. What the Safe Transitions effort is we delay putting a payment withhold in place for 60 days. And this is what I described when I was previously in front of this committee. And we notify both leadership and county case managers that a payment withhold is going in place for a certain provider. We let them know the people that are living in that building, the people that need assistance with support determining what options they would like to exercise, and other steps that will help them be successful. So that it's an effort to balance when we're in a tough situation where we have credible allegations of fraud, the evidence is indicating that we have a provider that is committing fraud, and we have people in a residential setting. How do we do both? Keep the people safe and not continue to let taxpayer dollars out the door. So the 60-day delay is designed to give the counties and DHS a head start at helping those people find a place to live. It's not perfect. It doesn't work in all instances. And we, as Deputy Commissioner Connolly explained, we are continue to come up with new ideas and supports to partner with counties and case managers to help people find the setting that is going to actually provide them the services they receive. Because in many of these instances, the reason that we are putting a payment withhold in place is because county caseworkers, families, or recipients themselves are telling us that that these individuals are not getting services. So they are already unsafe. They are already being harmed, where DHS is paying a lot of money for services and they're not getting services. So it's a very difficult situation to be in, and we really want to make sure that people get the services and that they're supported in moving to a place that will give them the services.
Thank you, Commissioner. And to that point, but there's, in that, okay, so they're not getting services, but there was no assurance, no leadership from somebody saying that this person was going to be okay, or the story that Kara Liv and AJ Legault did on the woman who lives with autism, that they evicted her from her apartment, or the ICS, the individual with ICS. That haunts me, and so I think you're there. So what do you, Senator Abeler has another follow-up.
Well, so there actually have three questions.
Go ahead.
How many, and how long? So,
Yeah.
So how many people are on the Safe Transition Program? How many providers that their suspension has been delayed? How many providers does that amount to? 10, 100, how many?
Commissioner?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Good.
How many?
Chair and
how
Senator,
long?
for the number of providers, do you have the number of providers with residential? I'm tracking the people. I came focused on the people today.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Well, Mr. Chair,
the number
how
of
many people?
How many people? So right now, what we have in terms of people still living in an ICS apartment that are subject to a payment withhold are about 66% of the people, so 174. And the number of individuals that we have successfully moved from an ICS apartment with a payment or moved to one is 98 people, or 35%.
And where do those people go, Commissioner, that were once living, independently or semi-independently? Are they going to group homes? I mean, are they?
And so I have that breakdown.
Yeah, that'd be
Chair.
great. Senator Abeler, is that okay? Yeah.
Chair
It's your
Hoff.
committee, Mr. Chair.
No, it's your-
Anything can be fine by you. So I think that's a great idea.
Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler. Right now, the numbers I have that were as of our March 6th data collection cycle was 26 people are in their own apartment or home. 22 are with a different ICS provider. 17 are with other residential service. And the remaining, 11 are in a temporary living situation with a family or friend. And then the numbers below that are fewer than 5, so I don't know how many are in those numbers, but those other situations that are temporary are, hospital, homeless shelter, unknown, jail, nursing home, treatment facility. And those numbers are fewer than 5 for each of those, so I don't have the data on that.
Senator Abeler.
That's helpful. And then, so how many, maybe this is for Mr. Clark, how many, I guess that's the point to be companies. We could ask how many people are involved with that too. It's an interesting thing, but how many different companies are on withholds due to allegations of fraud?
Mr. Clark.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler, I don't have the exact number as of today, right? The number varies from day to day. What I do know is that it was 540 people and businesses in calendar year 2025 that we issued a payment suspension due to credible allegations of fraud. So that would be business. So when we suspend payments to a business, we would also suspend payments to, let's say, an individual owner, like owners, managing employees of of those entities. So I would have to follow up with you and get you the exact number of businesses as of today.
Senator Abeler, do you find it interesting that we're talking about assuring people with disabilities have, what the Olmstead decision would be, or what this committee has always talked about, and we're not getting a specific response from the OIG? Am I misreading that? But I get a quote from last year, and I'm just like, that's not what I wanted to hear.
Actually, the question you have, Mr. Chair, is how many people in those businesses are
Thank you.
fine?
Thank you.
That's the question you want to know.
I do.
You could ask him if you want.
You just
I'll yield
did.
to you.
Mr. Clark, can you answer that question for the committee?
So I'll rephrase it if you want. And anyway, so another how many and then how long, but I'm interrupting my own questions. So of the people in these 540 nominal businesses representing, I'm sure, several thousand clients, maybe more, how many of those, with the people have not gotten paid for some time now, how many of those clients are in good stead? Like we talked about the transition people. So how many of these people are at risk of harm because they're providers not providing services?
Mr. Clark.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler, I would say all of them are at risk because we're suspending payments when we have evidence that the providers are not providing care to the individuals that are receiving services from those businesses. So I would have to give you a number of how many recipients are impacted by our payment withholds, but to answer your question, unfortunately, I would say all of the recipients at those businesses, because we have evidence that services are not being provided as billed at those businesses.
Senator Abeler.
Well, I mean, I get it. And you don't, I mean, every sentence doesn't have to say, like, we care about fraud, we're cracking down on people, this all bothers us, we're sick at night, we don't sleep well anymore because we're so troubled by it. I will posit that to you as a given, counselor. But so we just talked about a safe transitions program for some residential people. But now these these companies cannot be expected to serve people with money they don't have, even though, Commissioner, you said in the paper that they have a duty to try to continue, but people aren't going to work for nothing. And TSA, they go to work because it's the law. They're like essential employees, I think. And so PCAs are not essential employees. So it would be, I don't want to badger you, but if you could figure out how many people are represented by those 540 and what you're doing about that. So you're capturing the money and we're all worried about that. But at the end of the pipeline are 5, 10, 30,000 people. So my next question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Abeler.
So there's 540 open investigations. How many of those have been referred to the Attorney General? Of the 540 about?
So, Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler, so just to clarify, it was 540 payment suspensions, so not open investigations.
Oh, payment suspension. Okay, fine.
So we refer all of our payment suspensions, we're required to do so under law. So when we suspend payments due to credible allegations of fraud, we're required by law to refer those to the AG's office, so all of them get referred to the AG's office.
So all those 540 have been referred.
Senator
Oh,
Abeler.
sorry.
Senator
Mr. Chair.
Abeler.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Clark. So all those have been referred, 540 referrals as a stack of papers.
Mr. Clark.
Senator Hoffman, or Chair Hoffman, Chair Abeler, yes. The referral numbers can sometimes be combined, right? So like if we have a
But
business.
they've all been sent
Yes.
there. They're not sitting on your desk waiting to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last question.
Senator Abeler.
And so, well, I guess it's two questions, but how many have been adjudicated? So so some must have gotten solved. So actually, how many have been adjudicated? And what's the average time from discovering a credible allegation to the disposition where they're either put in jail or whether they're charged or they're dismissed?
Mr. Clark.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Abeler, I've asked my team to look into that, to get the average time that our referrals are pending, so I don't know that off the top of my head. What I will say is that it varies, but also we are seeing delays and extensions of time that our referrals are being reviewed by law enforcement and just the amount of time that it's taking to investigate them. So,
Can I ask a request, Senator Abeler, on the things that the director's going to get back to you on? Could you
Yeah.
please share that with the rest of this committee
Yeah.
so that we all are on the same page?
Maybe
Senator Abeler.
Mr. Chair, perhaps
And
they
then,
could
and then
share.
when you're done, we're going to Senator Gruenhagen.
Yeah, then this is the end. So,
Yep. You're good.
so Mr. Clark was very generous one evening, and we had a lovely time together, and it was enlightening to me, and I developed an appreciation for, I don't want your job, so you're good to go there. But I just want to tell, I guess, the commissioner, you're the head of this organization officially now. So if you have 540 investigations sitting there with, could be probably more than 10,000 human beings at the end of the pipeline not getting services, your safe transitions program isn't big enough. And the one person died last October, sometime like that, because they didn't get care. And that should keep us up all at night. And that's, I think, what Senator Hoffman and I are getting at. And, you know, let's get after the fraudsters. Let's make sure the threshold is high enough, and I'm concerned that it's not. We'll talk about that in other bills. But anyway, so that's and so if you get actually, Commissioner, like as part of that, so just, I'd like to know just like when a thing, if there's got to be an average length of time from when the credible allegation comes to when it gets done, so people who are going to be alleged will know that they should just close up shop and go out of business. And the testimony has been, Mr. Chair, these things have gone on so long that the people go out of business and then the case is dismissed because they're no longer in business. So I don't think is our intent. I'm done, Mr. Chair.
No, and you're right. That's never been this committee's intent. This has always been about getting to, are we assuring that people with disabilities are receiving the services that they need, right? You've waived your right to state institutional care, and let's make sure that it's successful. And I think we said that last week as well. Senator Gruenhagen, to these points.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks for being here and testifying. Say, you know, as I've looked at this, I see we have two proposals in front of us to try to resolve continuity care and also to address the fraud. The first one was published by Mr. Tim O'Malley, a 56-page report. The other one was by the governor, and I listened to his press conference, and I've tried to research as much as possible what the governor wants to do. And when I look at this, because the quickest way to get continuity of care and the money to the people who need it, in my opinion, is to figure out the quickest way to implement and stop the fraud, which is causing the delay in benefits to the disabled and those who really need it. So I see the governor's plan as a major upheaval. You know, we all agree the computer system needs to be updated, okay? We all agree on that. I mean, we're using DOS. But I see Tim O'Malley's report, it's a 9-pillar strategy, and it really gets to the heart of the matter much quicker. I see the governor's proposal taking several years based on my interpretation, where I see a lot of the things the O'Malley report wants to implement could be done quickly. I'll just give you one example. A simple implementation is I'm not a robot style verification would achieve much of the eligibility cleanup Wall seeks without upheaval. I'm not a robot requires MCOs to confirm enrollees are alive, Minnesota residents, and desire coverage, while halting payments for improper enrollment. This would immediately save $300 million. So, and then the report goes on. So my question to you is, I'm sure you've heard both reports, the Tim O'Malley report plus the governor's proposal. Where is the department position coming down on? Are you coming down more on the major upheaval and an extended period of time and removing everything from counties and putting it all in one government section, or do you like the Tim O'Malley report? That's my question.
Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Gruenhagen. Thank you for that question. I have great respect for the Director of Program Integrity, Tim O'Malley. I think his report was very well done. And actually, as soon as it was made available to us, I have put a team at DHS in charge of looking at that report and doing a alignment with efforts that are already underway with our CMS corrective action plan, as well as the work that is coming out of the Optum vulnerability assessment. So I welcome all good ideas to strengthen our programs, and I think there are a lot of great ideas that we are assessing and putting into action from the Tim O'Malley report. The governor's proposal has some good, very good, immediate, actionable ideas, and I see the upheaval, as you call them, the upheaval ideas, as thought starters for the legislature. A lot of them are ideas that have actually come from the legislature. We've heard them from various members. They've come from the counties themselves. They've raised these thought pieces. And so that is a discussion for how we can design the human services system better in the future. We know that it's not working optimally now, right? That's obvious. We all know that. We all know that county case managers need the right support to be able to support people with disabilities. They need the right rates paid so that they can address their workforce challenges. There's many things that we can do to strengthen the outcomes for people in Minnesota, and the governor's proposal includes a lot of those longer-term thought starters.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I would implement the things that could be done the quickest with the most benefit, and because we want to get the money to the people who really need it. And the longer we drag this process out, the more people that are going to get hurt in the process, in my opinion. The other thing the O'Malley report touches on is this culture of threatening and punishing employees who want to report fraud to leadership, like yourself, the commissioner. What is being done to change that culture in DHS, where employees who are our frontline defense for several years have been coming forward and reporting fraud, and yet leadership was threatening and punishing them for doing so? Has anything changed in that particular area? And has anybody been terminated for failure to protect tax dollars?
Commissioners, to Senator Gruenhagen's point.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Gruenhagen, thank you for that question. Yes, this agency, DHS, has been working on having a culture of speaking up and supporting employees feeling safe speaking up. It is absolutely unacceptable for any manager, any supervisor, any leader in DHS to discourage the reporting of issues or concerns. That is how we fix the gaps. That's how we stop fraud from happening. if I am made aware, if it is raised to me that anybody is discouraging an employee from reporting, we will investigate and take action. In terms of the culture turning around, we have done a lot of trainings, a lot of policies and procedures, numerous articles in our intranet, and two of the things that I'm encouraged by is we have a enterprise-wide engagement survey for employees, and DHS's numbers have remained either the same at about 75% feeling comfortable reporting and increasing. And specifically to our internal hotline, in 2024, we had 8 reports from employees that were lifting up concerns internally. In 2025, we had 42. So I think that is both probably illustrative of both the awareness of the need to report as well as the comfort reporting internally.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator Gruenhagen, and then we're going to go to Senator Rasmussen.
Yeah, I just got a couple more questions.
You only get one.
Yeah, and everybody else gets to ask what they want, so.
I'm kidding, Glenn.
I know you
can
are.
ask whatever you want.
Okay.
And then after Rasmussen, we go to Senator Maye Quade.
The other thing I'd
ahead.
say, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, thanks for that response. The other thing I'd say, you've been a part of the leadership over there. And some of the whistleblowers that have come forward, especially over in the House publicly, your name has come up as one of the ones that is threatening and persecuting the whistleblowers coming forward. Now, that's an allegation. It's not proven, but I just want to let you know that there are concerns that we have leadership without accountability that have actually been a part of the problem of the alleged $9 billion of fraud, that we're using it in a way to try to buy votes with state and federal tax dollars. Those are the types of allegations that are coming forward. So to the degree that you can root out people who are doing this to the employees, I think would be greatly appreciated, and it might vindicate you in some ways.
Sounds like that's what's going on. Glenn,
the next question.
Can I ask you?
Question.
Senator Gruenhagen, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The stuff in the O'Malley, because I'm sitting here wondering, and the commissioner alluded to some of that work is in either in the governor or the DHS's proposal. Do you have some stuff you want to add within our markup here? Or do you have something that you're working on that we should?
I did submit a bill.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay,
and
good.
I specifically asked that it would come to HS, okay?
Okay, good. I was like, because because the other thing you always bring up, you're always talking about, no matter what we're doing, are we assuring that $500 million that we're protecting that, from the state having to lose that match? And granted, the state of Minnesota gave more money to the federal government than the federal government gave us. But to your point, that seems to always be that filter, that 500 million. So I just wanted to just highlight that. I appreciate your work on that. So keep going. I'll get one more, and then we'll go to Rasmussen, and then to Maye Quade.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the other question I had, what efforts by DHS and yourself specifically are being done to recover some of this fraudulent money? I mean, we're talking about an alleged $9 billion. If we could get several hundred million, probably more, back, I'm sure taxpayers and people who want continuity of care would sincerely appreciate it. So what efforts has DHS made to recover some of the fraudulent money?
Commissioner?
Chair Hoffman, Senator Gruenhagen, thank you for that question. Over the past 5 years, DHS has identified about 50 million in recoveries. That is something that we have to work with our law enforcement partners on. So we work with the Attorney General's office, the USAO, as well as the BCA, depending on the nature of the money that has been stolen from the taxpayers. Unfortunately, it is very hard, as you know, to get recoveries, and we never recover all that we should. So that's why at DHS, we've also been working very hard to move upstream and put our program integrity measures on the front end so we don't end up in that place of losing those dollars.
Just a final comment. I won't ask another question, although I have several more.
Senator Gruenhagen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, let's put it this way. If I was in charge, there'd be people fired, okay? We're talking about $9 billion. We're talking about an atmosphere of people not getting the services that they need. People need to be held accountable, and we're talking about employees being threatened and persecuted for bringing this forward. You put me in charge, and there'll be people standing on an employment line pretty quick, and some of them need to go to jail, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a follow-up for the commissioner. Last time we were here, we talked about the legislative order report that there's multiple manager-level employees at the Department of Human Services who fabricated documents to basically hide the fact that they were not following department procedures on program integrity. Have any of those individuals been dismissed for their conduct?
Senator Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman and Senator Rasmussen, unfortunately, I'm not able to provide the disposition of the investigation and any action that is taken according to state law. I am not allowed to provide that until the complete appeals are done, but I am happy to provide that at that time.
Under advisement of my lawyer, I'm not able to, I hear that. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. Has any employee at the Department of Human Services been dismissed for their failure to protect tax dollars?
Madam Commissioner.
Senator Hoffman, Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, if an investigation shows that an employee deliberately did not protect taxpayers' dollars, did not act on fraud when it was brought forward to them, an investigation would be done and discipline would be issued, which includes firing.
Up to Senator Rasmussen, and then we're going to go to Senator Maye Quade after you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. My question wasn't, theoretically what would happen. My question is what has happened. There has been numerous cases of fraud within the Department of Human Services programs. Has anyone been dismissed for their failure to protect taxpayers?
Madam Commissioner.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, I've answered that question to the best of my ability at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm disappointed that we couldn't get an answer on that because that's one of the big questions I get asked when I'm back in the district I represent is has there been accountability? Has there been accountability when we have this failure to protect taxpayers? So I'm disappointed that that there hasn't been that level of accountability. Mr. Chair, I have another question for the commissioner.
Can we, because it's if it's another, can we stick to our assuring? The whole thing about this is getting to the continuity care conversation, right? So we're going to go to Senator Maye Quade, and then we're going to Senator Udke, but we have. It's now coming up on 4 o'clock, so I knew this would be a robust discussion, which is okay. I mean, it is what it is, but go ahead, Senator Rasmussen. I just want to let you guys know timeline, because we have Abeler bill, we have an Maye Quade bill up, we got a Senator Oumou Verbeten bill, we got, and we might even have an Udke bill on that, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In our packets, we had the summary of Governor Walz's proposal to quote, transform human services. And one of the concerns that I have is that many of these proposed reforms would take place in 2030, 2031, 2032, long after Governor Walz has left office. And one of the questions I had is, when it comes to ensuring program integrity and continuity of care, what's the status of site visits within the Department of Human Services across the programs? Can you talk about, is the Department of Human Services caught up in terms of the required site visits under the programs you supervise?
Good question. Commissioner?
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, I want to go back to the accountability question first. So at DHS, we investigate tips when they come in for fraud. And as I stepped into the role of temporary commissioner, and I chased down the tips that people told me they had given, I did not find a tip that was not acted upon. So if somebody wants to bring one to me that was not acted upon, then I will start an investigation and take action as appropriate. But every specific item that people brought to me, I found was referred to our OIG. Our OIG was investigating it. Our CMS contractor was investigating it. So I did not find instances in my time as temporary commissioner, in looking back, where information that was actionable wasn't acted on, or where employees turned a blind eye. I did not find that. But if I found that, and if I find that in the future, I will take action on that.
Senator Rasmussen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as a follow-up to the commissioner, do you believe that the Department of Human Services has done enough to protect taxpayer dollars and to stop fraud?
Commissioner?
Chair Hoffman and Senator Rasmussen, my whole time as temporary commissioner, I have been accelerating what the department does. So I think my actions speak for themselves. We have instituted data analytics to root out more fraud and to find out where there were concerning trends and outliers to take actions on those. In 2025, we placed more payment withholds, which is really at the root of this conversation today about continuity of care. But we did more payment withholds in 2025 than any of the years previously. We are currently, to your specific question about site visits, we are currently in the process of revalidating 5,800 providers in the high-risk services doing unannounced site visits to those providers. We've disenrolled about 17,000 inactive providers. We've started enhanced prepayment review and other actions. So this past year, we have continued to step up, and if there are other ideas that you have or any of this committee has that we could be doing to take stronger action on fraud, I would welcome it. I think this is a bipartisan issue. I think it's something that the legislature has to work with us on, that we have to work on, that we need the county support, provider support. It is something that we all need to do to build a stronger system at DHS where the funds are protected and people are getting the care that they need and the outcomes they need, and we are assuring continuity of care.
That's the key. Senator Rasmussen, one more, and then we're going to Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. We had an EIDBI provider testify to this committee last week that effectively the Department of Human Services is years behind doing site visits on the sites that they manage. Mr. Chair, my question could either be for Mr. Clark or the Commissioner. Is the Department of Human Services years behind in doing required site visits to these providers?
Commissioner Gandhi.
Senator Maye Quade and Senator Rasmussen, thank you for that question. One of the challenges DHS has had has been an influx in providers far beyond the expected number of providers that would be enrolling in services. That creates a gap when the funding that the legislature has provided for us to do provider enrollment and to do site visits doesn't cover the amount of providers that are enrolling. So I would need to check for you what our current status is on where we are with our site visits and get back to you with that specific answer. But one of the program integrity items that I would want to work collaboratively with the legislature on is making sure that when we set up and design these services, that we're adequately funding the agency to do the oversight functions that you would like done.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, Commissioner, my concern is, we had Governor Walz propose funding 3 new studies on human services, but the agency is behind on site visits. They're behind on technology. They're behind on ensuring that they have a culture where you don't have managers fabricating documents that are designed to protect taxpayer money. And my encouragement to the Department of Human Services would be to focus on those basic tools of program integrity instead of studying the problem for years to come. And I would like to get an update on where we are on site visits, especially on those high-risk programs that we know are vulnerable to fraud.
Thank you. I'm going to come to myself because I'm next on the list, and then to you, Senator Uckey, and then we do have to move on to our bills. This is more of a comment and more of a suggestion, but I appreciate the overview of the Transforming Human Services proposal summary. I very much agree with it. We've had private and public conversations that I think the insertion of third parties and MCOs is part of our problems. There's so many touch points along the path to services being provided that it is it's just porous. And so I very much support it. I do want to say, though, that I think we've had increasingly kind of this push-pull between the executive and the legislative branch and whose role is what. And it would have been really, really great to have heard about this and developed this in consultation with DHS and to know about it, many, many weeks before it was being rolled out, because again, like, you have an ally in me and wanting to get this done, but that is my job. That's our job as legislators, is to develop policy and move it forward. And so if there's good ideas, especially for something as complex as human services, really, really encourage you to work with your legislative partners and not kind of keep us in the dark, because it hurts us from being able to actually to do the good work that you're putting forward. So that is my plea. Senator Uckey, briefly, and then we will move.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got 2 things. The first one I'll just treat as a comment and then follow it up with a question. But my comment is, we heard about, various things here earlier, the O'Malley report and the governor's proposal. For those here joining us today from the agency, the governor doesn't make these things up. These come from the agency, correct? I think we're trying to separate the 2, and I believe they're kind of one of the same. And as we talk about those things, let's bring them right to the table firsthand. And I think, if we're talking about, and it's been already, these things have been coming up, so I won't repeat them all, but the fact that governor's proposal funds studies, but we already know so much of this and so many of the things we're lagging on. I think you guys all huddled up around the same table. So I'm hoping that we can move these things forward and not have this he said, she said, whatever. But anyhow, that's a comment. I do have one thing that goes back when we got a little off topic and got a little more onto the fraud, and this is for the department. We all hear about the suitcases full of cash leaving MSP. And I realize that it's federal agents, TSA agents that check us in when we go through security and all this. Is DHS working with the federal government through TSA to figure out how to put an end to millions of dollars going out on suitcases? I mean, somebody that's got a whole suitcase full of $100 bills, it's probably $1 million or 2 or 3. That's not a normal transaction. And we do need the federal government to help us on those, because they're the ones that are eyes on what's going on. But are you having those communications?
I think you bring back the memory. I think that was the argument about 10 years ago when they said that was, and after the legislative auditor went through their thing and they found that there was no suitcases going out, but they did find some fraud. So, Madam Commissioner, to Senator Utkey's points.
Chair Hoffman, could our Inspector General speak to that, since he partners with law enforcement?
Is that okay, Senator Utkey, Director?
Most certainly.
All right, Mr. Clark.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Utkey. To answer your question, I mean, we have a very strong relationship with the Attorney General's office. I meet with them regularly. With the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, I meet with them regularly. We respond to a lot of requests for information from federal law enforcement. The relationship with federal law enforcement was good when I first started in this role. Productive meetings, conversations, felt like I could get people on the phone. Those conversations have kind of dried up a little bit here recently. But to your point, I mean, I am willing to partner and work with law enforcement. I want to hold everybody responsible that is stealing money from our programs. So I think the relationship with federal law enforcement could get a little better. We do have strong relationships here at the state level, though.
Mr. Senator Archie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. As we think about this, I still, and I heard it from the commissioner, I still am not 100% feeling confident that people with disabilities are assured of the services that they are needed. Hence, Mr. Clark, your responses wasn't happy with them because you didn't know the answer to the question. And so that was unsettling for me as I looked down to the good senator from Anoka, and I thought, didn't answer the question. We have to be assured people with disabilities are safe. And I've said that in multiple hearings over and over. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here and for addressing the assurance and that you are working on it. And you didn't get into the elaborate process, but rather the fact that you have some things that you've put in place. You inherited a mess. It was a mess. And thank you for your leadership in doing what you are doing to assure that the things are starting to fall in place. It is a big, big, big system. This committee unequivocally wants to assure that the right things are being done at the right time. And that's what you get here. You know, you got it. So thank you, Deputy Commissioner Connolly, thank you for being here. Inspector General Clark, thank you for being here. And Commissioner, thank you for being here. I appreciate that for taking time to do that. And so anybody else? We're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman, and look forward to continuing to work with you on this.
And it sounds like it. Thank you, Commissioner. It sounds like there's some things that I look forward to some amendments being brought in or some bills being brought. The timing is just so tight. I don't like starting in February. I think this idea of a part-time legislature just ain't happening when you got big-time issues that we're dealing with, right? And so, members, I'm going to be real fast on my Senate File XXX. It's actually a continuity of care discussion. What I wanted you all to have in front of you was a continuity of care bill. It's not a bill, and so it's a proposal. I don't want you all to take a look at this proposal. What this is a it's the same as the companion that's in the other body that is being brought to this committee and will stay in this committee. But we have some underlying changes that I want you all to look at. So when we do get it jacketed and get the numbers to it, that conversation is correct. Did I get that correct? Correct? Did I get that certainty accurate? And so what you have, I just want folks to know that this proposal seeks to address the three main concerns that are shared by folks that we've talked to, folks regarding people that are in a payment withhold, right? This is a continuity of care discussion is what this committee's been about. Number one is protecting services. Number two is housing security. Number three is the shared responsibility of caring for our neighbors and establishing that there are clear coordination guidelines, right? Members, the proposal clarifies that the non-payment resulting from the interruption of a person's public benefit does not mean that the person accessing services loses the right to be notified of service suspensions or terminations within a reasonable time frame. Common sense. It also establishes that all service recipients of residential services are treated the same if a provider is temporarily suspending services or permanently terminating services. Focus, focus, focus. Continuity of care proposal ensures that people that are accessing services have flexibility and control of their care by clearly stating that individual home supports are allowed in semi-independent residential settings. Service recipients will be able to continue services without being locked into the same provider who also controls their living situation. There's that lever of, well, what do? We got two different systems that are balancing us here. The proposal, folks, as you look at that, will also ensure that each service recipient has a right to a clear and accurate bank records of their housing costs. Accountability. Minnesotans with disabilities who live in unique provider-controlled settings will no longer be left in the dark about how their finances are being spent. This provision also provides service recipients with literal receipts if they are facing eviction. Remember, we all were talking about this. Finally, the proposal establishes a person-centered continuity of care team, coordinated, collaborative, and comprehensive, there, good Senator from Anoka, that must intervene when Minnesotans living in residential settings are affected by a payment withhold. Outlining the shared responsibilities of all parties and mandating accountability ensures our neighbors caught in the middle of an investigation are not forgotten. You may or may not have noticed that I've shared this proposal from the perspective of our loved ones and neighbors that are living in residential settings. The proposal clarifies their rights, provides them with flexibility and control over their care, insurance, the financial transparency. It assures the financial transparency in how their housing costs are spent and promises that the state prioritizes their safety and well-being above all things, right? So there's a high-level overview. I don't need to go into that. You all have the language in front of you. There are a bunch of people signed up to testify. This is not a bill. So members, in the interest of time, if you want to wait till we get this jacketed and then have the folks testify, because this language that you have in front of you is going to be a delete all to the language that is coming over from the other body. So questions?
Well, Mr. Chair.
Senator Abeler.
Well, I mean, it's,
Yep.
if there's just a couple people that want to comment on it, I don't think we need to have a bunch of, just that there's a representative testifier, that would be.
That's fine. I got that. I will do that. Senator Gruenhagen, you agree with that?
Yeah, to a certain degree. The,
So he just doesn't disagree with me and stuff. I love that.
here's the quick question on the bill.
Yeah.
What's the consequence if they ignore, one of the charges we have is that DHS has ignored the laws in terms of accountability. So in your bill, what's the consequence to DHS if they ignore laws passed by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Walz?
I love this. You must have segued into me, Senator. I was thinking, as far as like the Ombudsman's office would clearly have something to say about that. So I think, thank you for that. So let's bring up Pariche Radina. Actually, what I want to do, Pariche, if you want to come up to the table, then we got everybody else is by Zoom except Maeve Olson. I hope I said that right. So why don't you come up too? And, Josh Berg, I see he's on here. Holy smokes. So Josh, come on up as well. Let's go to Ellen Smart first, because she's on. No, you know what? Forget that. Sorry, Ellen. I'm going to go to Pariche first. So go ahead. For the record, please, Radina.
Chair Hoffman, members of the committee, Pariche Radina with the Office of Ombudsman for Long-Term Care. I won't read my testimony because it is longer than what the committee is looking for today, but will agree with that point, Senator Gruenhagen, that wanting to see a mechanism, something like reporting to the legislature if the recommendations of the continuity of care team are not taken up by the commissioner, that would be a way to provide some transparency and accountability. I will also add there are some pieces of the bill of the conversation we really appreciate. The resident notification of a payment hold by DHS is very important. Misinformation does happen, and so this is a good way to clarify. We also really appreciate being included as an office that is notified in the conversation as well. So thank you very much. Would love to be named specifically as an office that gets that notification.
Yeah, I thought we named that in there. Is that not in there because it should be?
Chair, the current language reads that appropriate ombuds offices are notified. We'd love to be named.
Correct. Let's do that one, because this will be the language in we have what I'm sharing with the committee is going to be the work that we did here as a group. It's separate. We're going to add that as a delete all from does that make sense? We've just been working, we've been working as a group, but it's just, the timeline's just, I hate starting in February, you know? We got work to do. So thank you for your comments, and I thank you for keeping it short. Let's go to Lisa Harrison Hadler. She's on Zoom, Office Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Lisa Harrison Hadler. I serve as Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities. And I'm going to kind of jump around here through my comments to try to keep things as short as possible for you. But I just want to express my support for this proposal that demonstrates truly the endearing commitment of this committee to care for people. This bill does just that. It puts care for people more in balance with the need for process in our state's robust fraud mitigation and response efforts. And really, truly in Minnesota, we should not and cannot sacrifice people to a process that does not sufficiently and proactively consider the impacts to each and every person. Do want to definitely support the creation of the housing accounts for people to support and prevent those situations where people can find themselves in eviction proceedings through no fault of their own. We do have some questions about how that would apply in situations when the client elects to discontinue services or upon lease renewal, or just kind of some of the mechanics and timelines of things that we'd like to better and further understand, whilst absolutely supporting the concept and the protections that this brings in to promote and preserve housing stability. I think to Preet's point, we appreciate the appropriate ombuds office being in there, but it would be really helpful for us if both of our offices could be named, and we can work together as we so often do to collaborate and determine who might be the better resource for a particular set of circumstances. We also just emphatically support that when those actions are taken, that people receiving services themselves be directly notified. We've seen repeatedly under the current structure wherein the provider delivers the news of payment withhold and it results in incomplete, sometimes wholly inaccurate information. We've heard of providers ending services abruptly, telling clients that DHS is shutting us down without any acknowledgement of client rights. And you know, I came to this body last month talking about when there are fraud mitigation efforts taken, including those payment withholds. DHS has an obligation, a responsibility to ensure that those actions do not compromise the continuity of care for people receiving services, people who have done nothing wrong and are powerless in that process. I shared with you, having inquired of the department, kind of what exact supports are they offering in those situations, and still haven't gotten a substantive response. I think this proposal recognizes and codifies to create that continuity of care team, establishing very clear, very tangible, very specific obligations under all of those. I would, however, ask this committee to consider going one step further. In this language, if the continuity of care team recognizes and has not identified alternative services, solutions, service providers, or service settings for people, the team is to notify the commissioner and recommend either a good cause to not suspend payments or other relief. However, our concerns at the Ombudsman Office for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities is those recommendations appear to be non-binding. We believe this process could be exponentially strengthened if, upon declining to implement the recommendation of the continuity of care team, the commissioner was required to transparently report that, potentially to all of you at the legislature. We believe this.
So I'm gonna just, it's great. I can't write as fast as you have those recommendations. Are you gonna work? Because I want also, Perich, God, you guys don't ever get, Periche, I'm sorry, that just Periche. I would assume that there would be some kind of amendment to language that you guys are going to get. Senator Utke will probably be the chief author of that. I got you to smile a little bit, Paul, but if you have those recommendations on that, specifically on that core team and what it is and what it looks like, I absolutely am open to that. So you got to say one more point. I got to move on though, Lisa. I do
understand, and thank you for the time. We just believe that taken together, this will all enhance accountability while protecting people.
Thank you. Let's go to Ellen Smart, Disability Law Center, counselor.
Good afternoon. Chair Hoffman and members of the committee, my name is Ellen Smart. I'm a staff attorney with Legal Aid in the Disability Law Center. Provider fraud makes every taxpayer in Minnesota a victim, but last year, some people stopped thinking about the victims that pay the biggest price, who are the disabled Minnesotans. I'm going to skip right to the recommendations that we have for this policy. We think it's a great policy. The suggestions we would have is we'd like to see more deadlines added to the duties for each agency so that individuals know what to expect and exactly when to expect it so that it's even more clear to affected individuals. We'd like to work with you with language around the housing accounts to simplify the language. Requiring the accounting is a very important part of this bill. And so we believe that the language is a little complicated, could be more expansive. The accounting is important to let clients know that rent is being paid, and it's also a really important fraud protection measure. People will know earlier on when there's a problem and won't be surprised to find out months after the fact that their rent that they were paying was never going to the landlord in the first place. We'd also like to suggest the addition of language in subdivision 4 in lines 9.3 to 910, that if all else fails, DHS must bring state-operated or state-provided services in until a service provider or alternative services can be identified. And we're especially grateful that a system is being created to ensure that even when systems fail, Minnesotans with disabilities will continue to remain housed and get the services they need to remain as independent as possible. And thank you, Senator Hoffman, for coming back to this work with a vengeance and pulling this bill together so quickly.
Thank you, Ms. Smart. Counselor, it really does take a village. I mean, it's just like you do this by yourself. And that's why hopefully what you just did, especially I take note of 9.3 to 9.10, get that stuff to our committee administrator as soon as possible, and then work with that to get it when we do get this out. So thank you, Ms. Smart. Josh.
Thank you.
Josh, and thank you, Ms. Smart, for your testifying last week. I'm still not guaranteed that people with disabilities are assured that they are going to be okay. And thank you for highlighting that. And Senator Gruenhagen, this is good. What you brought up about the transparency, I think this is where we need, this is our work. And so I appreciate that. And then go ahead, Josh Berg.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you for the opportunity. I've deleted half of my testimony since sitting up here, so hopefully I'm quick. Today, I'm simply here as an advocate for people who rely on the system every single day. When a provider suddenly faces a payment withhold, these individuals wake up and find the supports they rely on to get out of bed, take medications, stay housed, or simply live, disappear. And the question becomes painfully simple. Who is catching them before they fall? For the past 6 months, too often that answer has been no one. The bill is grounded in one core principle. When DHS imposes a payment withhold, the people receiving services must not pay the price. In short, Mr. Chair, you took the words right out of my mouth. This bill is coordinated, collaborative, and comprehensive. It guarantees a safe, orderly handoff, not a hard stop when enforcement actions occur. There are a few practical refinements that would make this even stronger. As Ms. Smart pointed out, we need clearer timelines and expectations because in a crisis, ambiguity becomes harm. Second, clarifying communication duties and escalation pathways will prevent the gaps in finger pointing we've seen over the past 6 months. And finally, the language should be unmistakable, should make it unmistakable that the state of Minnesota is where the buck stops. Lead agencies, case managers, providers all play critical roles, but only the state has the authority and the moral obligation to ensure no one falls through the cracks. This framework is not only compassionate, it's federally required. Federal Medicaid rules mandate continuity of care without delay when networks change and require ongoing coordination across settings. They also require states to consider good cause not to suspend or to suspend only in part when access to care would be disrupted. And Mr. Chair, to Senator Abeler's earlier comments, my understanding is not a single good cause exception has been approved in the past 6 months, despite clear federal expectations. Act on fraud and protect beneficiary access. Those are not competing values. They are simultaneous obligations. Senate File 4098 finally operationalizes that balance that has not existed under OIG's heavy-hammered approach over the past 6 months. And let me be clear about who this protects. The ventilator-dependent adult whose nurse knows the alarm that means move now, the person with a brain injury whose DSP keeps them safely housed, the parent praying that their child's autism supports don't disappear overnight because paperwork moves faster than people. This bill ensures the Minnesotans experience a handoff, not a hard stop. And that is what federal law requires. That is what decency requires. And that is what this bill, thanks to Senator Hoffman's leadership, finally delivers. Looking forward to working with the Ombudsman's offices, the Disability Law Center, and all of you to get this over the finish line.
Thank you, Mr. Berg, and I absolutely look forward to you working with who you just mentioned to get this to the bill that we like. So thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for even though you like Zainab Mohammed better than anybody else on this committee, thank you for your work. Ms. Olson from the Brain Injury Alliance, I'm going to go to Kathy Messerly first. She's on the Zoomerang, if that's okay. Ms. Messerly, I'm running out of time, but lots of people said lots of good things in front of you. So you got any addition?
I am going to keep it very short. Thank you so much, Chair and members of the committee, for hearing me. I would like to share that this bill has really, I absolutely support continuity of care. This bill has absolutely focused on residential setting. And I would just like to draw your attention to those that are living in their private homes and hope that you will integrate that in. As you know, our case management system has been overwhelmed, and we have providers whose funds have been cut, leaving individuals in their homes without any care, any support. I'm just going to showcase one quick individual, 84-year-old, severe dementia, unable to manage bills. Grocery delivery has stopped because of the managing of the bills. There's no food in the house. The meals are not being delivered because the county case manager is not following up. The county min-choice assessor did not complete the assessment, and it was because of the dementia, but there was no one following through and helping the individual to do that. 2 MARC reports were submitted by the provider. No case was opened. I learned during my research on this that Minnesota has the lowest response to MARC reports nationwide, which I did not know. It's my understanding there isn't sufficient funding for adult protection services. This individual lives in a county where 9% of the adult protection services reports were accepted for investigation and services. I was stunned to hear that. And I share all this to say, you know, the OIG's office was aware of it, but there just wasn't anyone to step in and take care of her. So I hope that you will realize that when people are living in their homes, it's sometimes even more dangerous than when people are in a residential setting. And I hope that you'll consider that as you take a look at this bill. And thank you for your concern about continuity of care.
You are absolutely, thank you. And you bring up what I remember. It was our response as a committee to folks that were being evicted. Do you remember that scary thing? But thank you for once again bringing us back to the greater collective of why we do what we do. Right? This gets into what I remember saying a couple of years ago, saying, why do we do what we do, right? And so, thank you. And you'll get that language, Kathy. I don't know how you want to. You can either send it to Sam or directly, and we'll get it to Mr. Monahan to integrate somehow, right? However, the magic word of how they do that. So, thank you for reminding us why we do what we do, Kathy. Appreciate you. Ms. Olson from the Brain Injury Alliance.
Yes, hello, Senate chairs and Human Services Committee members. My name is Maye Olson. I'm the Public Policy Coordinator for the Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance. We work largely with individuals on the BI, CADI, and other waivered programs and services, so out in the community through education, outreach, services, and advocacy. We support strengthened programming accountability and transparency measures. We also support clear guidance on roles, expectations, quality controls, and thoughtfully constructed processes or protocols that center individuals impacted and their well-being at the center of everything. Legislators should look at historic precedent, best practices, and implementation impacts when proposing changes for our state's human services crisis planning. It's critical to ensuring the efficient and effective uses of state and/or federal Medicaid dollars while also protecting the health and care of impacted individuals who rely upon these programs. In reviewing the bill proposals, we do have a few suggestions for tighter language with additional deadlines, as was mentioned, and timeframes, so that impacted individuals are not left behind in crisis without clarification on what might be happening next. Any creations of a continuity of care team or complex transitions team, as in the other members' chamber, should support and prioritize individuals impacted and be tasked with ensuring that impacted individuals do not face extremes such as homelessness or death as a result of service provider disruptions or change oversight. We do need to continue to honor individual autonomy and dignity while providing options and choices, while simultaneously doing our due diligence as a state to avoid worsening the current housing and mental health crises. The solutions may not be simple, but sustained engagement and continuous improvements will be required from every voice here to succeed. So we'd be more than happy to continue talking about this and working with anyone on any of these related topics, but thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your input. Thank you. Senator Gruenhagen.
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
You know, this is a delete all from what the House sent over, if I remember right. It'd be nice when the bill's actually jacketed to have a side-by-side comparison of the House bill versus the Senate bill and what the major changes are so we can properly evaluate.
Ours is better. I mean, that's just, you know, you used to be in
That's
the
a
other.
waste of time.
It is a waste of
There's
time.
no point in reading the
Yeah.
House language.
I'll withhold my judgment until I see both sides.
I love it. Thank you. So let's go with, thank you, everybody. It sounds like we got some work to do. Senator Oumou Verbeten, Carrie Briones, you want to come on down and bring your laptop and plug it in. Senate File 4399.
Mr. Chair, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I will be brief and then pass it on to.
I need to cut you off for a second.
Yes.
This serious, right? It is your birthday today, and so this committee needs to say happy birthday to you, Oumou Verbeten, Senator.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to Senator Oumou Verbeten. You want to sing?
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Senator Claire. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I feel all the love. Thank you so much, Mr.
Where's
Chair.
our donuts? This is the first time you're in front of this committee. You're supposed to bring donuts.
You know, we'll have to continue the celebration, I think, the rest of the week.
Thank you.
It's only fair.
And we're going to recommend to pass this and refer to judiciary. Is that correct? Thank you.
That's
it's all
correct.
yours, Senator. Senate File
Thank
4399.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a DCT agency bill. There's some technical and policy changes, updating statutes that were missed as a part of the transition for DCT into a standalone state agency. So there is pieces in here to ensure that DCT can continue its standard healthcare operations by clarifying its ability to share limited patient data in really narrow and specific circumstances, such as with guardianship courts, regulatory and accreditation bodies, law enforcement, and oversight agencies. It also allows the DCT medical director to authorize medical care in limited circumstances for those patients that cannot consent to treatment, and good faith efforts have been made to locate a guardian, the nearest proper relative, or anyone to authorize care on their behalf. And then it increases the amount of time an individual may voluntarily return to the forensics program for a psychiatric or medical need. DCT has vetted these provisions with their external partners and other state agencies, really to make sure there are safeguards in place for data sharing and authorization of medical care. And I'll pass it to them to share more about the bill. Thanks.
Ms. Briones, welcome.
Chair and members, for the record, my name is Carrie Briones. I'm the Legislative Director for Direct Care and Treatment, and my intent before you is to walk you through the sections of the bill as quickly as possible, being cognizant of time. Sections 1, 2, and 7 are changes that we are proposing related to DCT's separation as a standalone agency that became effective this past July. Section 1 corrects a reference in a tort statute that simply removes a reference to the DHS commissioner and inserts the DCT executive board. There's no substantive changes, just updating reference. Section 2 allows for a designee in DCT to review data challenges for the Minnesota Sex Offender Program. When DCT was part of DHS, a designee within DCT assisted the DHS data compliance official with the review of these client data disputes to ensure the accuracy of the data and a timely response. This was primarily due to a high volume of submissions that are approximately over 3,000 a year, which is about 8.2, 8.6 a day. This language is merely putting in the same process that has been longstanding into effect in DCT statutes. It also provides accuracy, ability to respond timely, and kind of sets in a checks and balances by having more than one person do this work. Pivoting over to Section 7, this creates a new section of statute for DCT in its chapter that allows for the conversion of employees from unclassified service to classified service with MMB approval. Before DCT became its own agency, some positions were designated as unclassified under a special session law from 1997. When DCT separated from DHS at the start of fiscal year July 1, 2025, that authority did not transfer with DCT. Without that authority, DCT can no longer continue using that special unclassified designation. As a result, certain positions must move from unclassified status into classified service. This is a structural and legal requirement. And for the committee's reference, Section 246C05, which passed in 2023 as part of our separation, providing employees transferring to DCT as part of the separation with employee protections. This law expired when our separation became effective, so really what this proposal is in the spirit of that statute that has expired is making sure that employees are held harmless as part of that transfer. Now I'm going to go back in order for the rest of the sections after bouncing over to 7. Sections 3, 4, and all of the changes in Section 5, except for those under Parens I, allow DCT to share information authorized under HIPAA as necessary for routine behavioral health care operations. History with this bill, for this proposal is that in 2024, there were changes to the Minnesota Health Records Act that require express authority under Minnesota law to share patient information. Other healthcare providers are able to get signed releases from patients and their guardians upfront that allow for sharing of this information. Our patients often cannot consent or do not have someone to place or consent on their behalf. And this change is reinstating the ability for DCT to do this. And if there are some examples that I can certainly provide if members have questions, where this is causing a hiccup for us related to billing for health insurance, our Medicaid, Medicare, and other things. But in the interest of time, I will just keep charging ahead. For the additional change that's in Section 5 at Parents 1, this is at lines 9.13 to 9.23. This change allows DCT to close limited patient information directly to the guardianship courts for the purpose of supporting guardianship proceedings when a release of information cannot be reasonably obtained. Specifically, DCT will, under this proposal, could share information when a patient lacks capacity to provide consent or when a guardian is unavailable, non-responsive, or refuses to authorize disclosure. This change would allow physician statements and relevant records to be submitted in defined circumstances to coordinate appropriate decision-making authority. Moving on to sections 6 and 8, this allows the DCT medical director to authorize medical care in limited circumstances for patients that cannot consent to treatment, and good faith efforts have been made to locate a guardian, a nearest proper relative, or anyone to authorize care on their behalf. And this is a bit of a stopgap for the prior proposal I talked about relating to guardianship, where there's no guardianship action underway. This authority is specific to a condition and medical treatment and is by no means a blanket authority. For context, currently for non-emergency necessary care, such as treating infections or managing chronic conditions, DCT must seek consent from a nearest proper relative or obtain a court order authorizing specific treatment. There are circumstances where the nearest proper relative cannot be located or is unavailable. This does mean that DCT must seek court orders to provide routine care. This process is inefficient and impractical, leaving patients without timely, routine, but necessary care until their condition deteriorates and becomes an emergency. I'd like to note that DCT consulted with the Ombudsman's Office and partners to ensure guardrails are in place so patient can seek independent review of determinations and treatment decisions.
Thank you. It's good to know. That was going to be, you could have just done that. You'd be done in 30 seconds, man. It was like, that was
Yes.
great.
We worked very closely.
I could tell you did
them.
that.
And
Briones, thank you so much.
And just sections 9 and 10 quickly. These sections will allow an individual on provisional discharge to return to a secure facility longer than 60 days currently provided in statute. Chair and members, a couple years ago, we had this change. It's at 60 days currently. What we're looking to do is for folks that need to come in for a psychiatric tune-up, for them to come back 90 days. If it's only for medical and not a psychiatric issue, up to 6 months before that provisional discharge would be pulled.
So does this protect somebody like at the Anoka Regional Treatment Facility who was discharged and there was something going on in their world and they were just like, they needed some support, but was told that, this was years ago, we're talking 10 years ago, Ms. Briones, and they ended up lighting themselves or they threatened to pour gasoline on themselves because they needed treatment. And so this would say if somebody showed up back at the door saying, I need treatment again, that you as an agency would say, come on in, we'll get you feeling better.
Chair Hoffman, these are for individuals that have left forensics in St. Peter. And if they're recognizing that there's some decompensation or noticing like they just feel off, right? For some reason they need what I call it a tune-up.
Okay.
That they'd be able to come in, there would not be any penalty where they'd get that provisional discharge pulled. It's in some ways a punishment, right? If you stay past 60 days.
Yeah.
And this gives them a little bit more time. I will share that this proposal came out of the work of the Mentally Ill and Dangerous Task Force. This is going to be one of the recommendations. However, the report wasn't ready to get in front of you guys quite in time this session. So with their blessing, we brought this item forward.
Thank you. I'm going to go Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Ms. Briones. Ms. Briones, I'm looking at page 9, starting at line 9, going to line 12. Is that language needed or does it have any effect in practice for direct care and treatment?
Ms. Briones.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, this language was put in more as a comfort language to be clear that DCT will not share information with law enforcement unless authorized under law. It doesn't
Senator
change
Rasmussen.
anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, Mr. Chair and Ms. Briones, if this language was removed, is that something you're comfortable with? Does that change how direct care and treatment would operate?
Ms. Briones.
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, the department does not oppose that deletion.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I would move to amend Senate File 4399, page 9, strike line 9 through 12.
Senator Oumou Verbeten, you have that in front of you?
I do,
You'll-
Mr. Chair, and had a chance to discuss this with Ms. Briones as well. So if the agency's not opposed, I'm not either.
Dang, you did your homework, Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm always hesitant to delete data privacy language, and maybe I'm the person that it's comforting for, which is why I might want to keep it in, to be honest with you. Senator Oumou Verbeten or Ms. Briones, can I ask you a little bit more? I'll start with you, Senator Oumou Verbeten, just why I should be fine with its deletion, because I'm uncomfortable at the moment.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator. My understanding is this was really comfort language that wouldn't change the process that DCT has, but I think Ms. Briones could speak to that clearer.
Ms. Briones.
Chair Hoffman, members, I may need to phone a friend online about this, but it was comfort language, to be clear, and part of this came in just with the activities that were going on in Minnesota at the time. We were receiving questions, just as we were developing our proposals about how we share information.
Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I mean, that was what my thought was, and I think that even if we are not in this current moment under that amount of siege, like, who's to say that doesn't start again tomorrow? And I do think it's important that we have this articulated in as many places in law as possible. Even if it's just re-articulating the law, it's always easier if it's in the statute.
In the statute. Yeah, I
we
hear
need to be
you.
in.
Senator Verbeten, any response to that, or you're good? No?
You know, I'll leave it up to the committee, honestly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Gruenhagen to the amendment.
Yeah,
You got an amendment to the amendment?
no. No, I think Senator Rasmussen just read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to propose. Okay. So I do appreciate that. And here's the reason why, members, and this is what I want you to think through. One of the reasons that we're in the situation where we are, where CMS and the federal government is withholding funds that are necessary for the continuity of care, is because we've been resistant in so many areas to the federal government versus cooperating. And the supremacy clause overrides state law. So members, but rather than putting this type of thing into a bill, we need to delete this and start cooperating with the federal government, and believe it or not, we'll get the 500 million so we can have continuity of care
I
for
knew
the
it was
people who
coming back
need
to the
it.
500 million. I'm glad he was doing that, so.
Anyway,
All right.
so I recommend that.
You like the amendment?
Yes.
All right, so any other comments on the amendment? All those in favor of the Senator Rasmussen amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. We got, it passes. Thank you for that work, people. So what are we doing with this, Senator Oumou Verbeten?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Senator from Anoka.
Just a comment. I talked to the department about this, and I just want to caution them in my discussions as well. It's on page 14, lines 14.15 to 1420. This allowing people to come back. I really think this needs a little more work. So a person's not doing well, I'll go back and get some help. But this could be the Hotel California, this could be the sex offender program, again, that they're going to never get out of, which I believe is actually unconstitutional, but that's a different bill. But I think they need to, if they go in voluntarily, they should get out at a prescribed time, no matter what state they're in. Otherwise, I would never go back in, and you want to draw them in to rescue them. So I talked to them before about this, so if this moves forward, we can take it offline, but it really doesn't protect an individual. It just says, the only bar on line 1415, if the committed person is not returned to the original facility within this amount of time, then they have to stay forever. And I don't think you mean, and you give a couple of reasons, like a non-psychiatric medical condition. I mean, they don't even belong in the place in the first place. So if you can work with me on that, I'm friendly to the topic, and I just want to help people actually readmit themselves before they hurt somebody, and then if they get out, if they're dangerous again, there's other ways to lock them up. So anyway.
Senator Rasmussen and then Senator Oumou Verbeten, we will give you final word. Senator Rasmussen.
Just a clarification on the point from Senator Abeler, question to Ms. Brioni's. This doesn't change anything with the Minnesota sex offender program.
Senator Rasmussen.
Just a clarification. Question to Ms. Brioni's. This doesn't program. This would be in relations to the state.
No.
Is that correct?
Chair Hoffman, Senator Rasmussen, you are correct. This is not impacting.
So I think his concern is, Don Henley is at any time, but you can never leave. We don't want the same situation where somebody goes in and they're in that system regardless. And we toured down there, and there are people with developmental disabilities. It was the appropriate placement for them, right? So,
thank you.
Senator Abeler, that's the point where you were raising.
I was only using
that.
it as an equivalency, not the same. Thank you.
No, I get that. So Senate File 30, Senator Oumou Verbeten, any final words?
No, just ready to move it to judiciary. Thank you.
So based on that, Senate File 3861, Senator Abeler will move Senate File 38 61 as amended should be recommended to pass. Not as amended? I thought we amended it. Yeah, it was amended.
It
I got
was.
the wrong. Abeler will move Senate File 38 should be recommended to pass. Yeah, it was amended.
It
I got
was.
the. Here's the thing. I the wrong. It's the wrong.
Mr. Chair, it's the
Senate.
wrong.
Looking at you going, I bet you that's what I just did. God.
File 4399 as amended be recommended to pass and be referred to the.
Senator Abeler is correct, 4399. I was wrong, the list, we got, whatever. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Senator Abeler, your bill is up, Senate File 4121. Adrienne Sloan, you're on Zoom. And Suzanne Scheller, Counselor Scheller, from the great, Senate File 4121, Adrienne and Suzanne Scheller from the great Key.
I just, and it was my, as amended, right?
That is correct. And Senate File 4399. So we're good.
Chair, I know the day is getting late, but this is a bill that is going to be resolved along the way. It's close to being, I think, in good shape to become law. The issue that this, so Senate File 4121, which will not be amended today, will have people stop calling 911 when a senior citizen or resident slips out of their wheelchair or falls down at an assisted living. And so Senate File 4121, which will have people stop calling 911 in a wheelchair or falls down at an assisted living. Very graphic example about this that was who tragically he was forced into a corner and it was against policies. Develop a policy, but how you actually kind of pick them up and quit calling 911. 911 is kind of busy with real emergencies compared to some person just slips out and is lying on the floor. And there's some places that have done this repeatedly. Ms. Scheller will testify briefly about this. But just seems you kind of pick them up and quit calling. Some person just slips out repeatedly. I believe to be a very good start, but we're going to wait till we finish the job here in the upper chamber. But I think, and we're working with the Imperative, and they've been great to work with on this. And so it's a wonderful time where the voices and the Imperative can actually get together and collaborate. So with that, I've got a testifier and whoever else wants to.
Looks like you got a couple there, Senator Abeler. And so it's your desire not to send this to the floor, but to lay this one over and have.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
We can get it right.
Adrienne Sloan, you're on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me. I'm here today regarding my father, Larry Thompson. And he's the individual that was being spoke about. He was a resident at an assisted living. And last year on March 30th, he was trying to get up from his dining room table and into his motorized scooter, and he ended up having difficulties maneuvering into a scooter, and ultimately with a staff member in the dining area, and ultimately was not given any type of assistance and ended up falling on the side of his scooter into the wall and having his head pinned between the wall and his scooter. And when a staff member finally did come, that should have been able to at least call 911 to render aid, she did not. And therefore, the 3 minutes that he was still alive breathing that was showing on the video, he ultimately died while waiting to call 911 to render aid. And therefore, the 3 minutes that he ultimately died while waiting. This could have ultimately allowed my father a chance to live, as opposed to dying at the hands of the facility and at the hands of the employees. And with that no lift allowed my father a chance to live, dying at the hands of the facility, the employees. I'd like to say that with individual or their family to have to go that I did along with that are being asked. I appreciate it.
I don't know what I can say. Thank you. That's
birthday.
A little triggering to lose somebody, and especially when it was KM. What I can say. Thank you. And Adrian, I'm sorry for what happened to your dad. Ms. Scheller.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman, members of the committee. I'm really just here to support Ms. Sloan.
Ms. Scheller. And I'm sorry. Ms. Scheller.
Here to support Ms. Sloan. But this is an important thing that he anticipated that he would, the family anticipated he would pass away. So we're really looking at those emergency responses and distinguishing those from non-emergency responses and developing training, policies, procedures, and transparency. Thank you. This was anticipated he would pass away. So responses and distinguishing those from transparency. Thank you.
I get that. Thank you. I need to help for a long time, and now it's spit it out, right? But can we just, if you two wanted to, you want to be, I got your name down here, and I don't have your name as a testifier list. Do you want to come up, or am I just, I've been at this, in the interest of time, because we have Senator Maye Quade's bill, which I don't want to push off till Wednesday, testifier list. Do you? I've been at this. In the interest of time, because we have, which I don't want to take 2 minutes. So I want, can you just do one, consolidate one there and say, look at Jim and say, I hate your bill, Jim Abeler. I just want to, or whatever, I love this bill. We got work to do, something. Don't use the word oppose. I'm just finding I hate the word oppose. I just don't know why, but I do. So Ms. Huppert, go ahead, and Mr. Burnt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Kyle Burnt. I am here today on behalf of the Long-Term Care Imperative. Appreciate the opportunity to testify on Senate File 4121. I'll keep it as brief as I can here. Appreciate the attention to resident safety from the author and from the advocates, and recognize the terrible tragedy that brought this proposal forward. We had the opportunity to meet with the advocates on Friday, continuing those conversations, as you heard. One of the primary concerns in the proposal is how it may operate in practice. As just an example, listing specific emergency scenarios in statute may unintentionally require that we have individual plans for each one and any others that might be added to that as a way to respond to those emergencies. So I'll turn it over to my colleague to finish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As Mr. Burnt referenced, we have already had a couple of conversations with Senator Abeler and with the proponents of the bill, and we believe there's a true opportunity for some common ground and look forward to bringing that to you at a future date.
See, thank you. Senator Abeler, final words, and then we're going to lay this over. And
Yeah, and just our heart goes out to the family, and but I can just tell you that all the parties are working in good faith, Mr. Chair, and I see a resolution on the horizon. So with that, you can lay it over, and we'll see you next week or so.
And thank you for keeping that good faith. That was, thank you. This bill is laid over. Thank you, Senator Abeler, for your work on this.
So with that, you can lay it
for keeping that good faith. That was, thank you, Senator Abeler, for your work on this. Thank you for being here. Maye Quade. What are you thinking?
Mr. Chair, Senator had $1 million to do a one-time who are waiting to be discharged home with the appropriate level of care. And we're moving that report due date December 15, 2025. Mr. Chair, there's a author's amendment that deletes October and inserts December 15th. So it's very simple. No program change, just a report change so we can get the full 2 years.
Awesome. And we're just going to make that motion.
So moved.
So moved. Senator Maye Quade moves that. Is this bill, we laying this bill over, or what are we doing? You want to go to the floor with it?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to dual track it. If we can pass the A1 amendment and then dual track it. So moved.
So moved. What are you doing? You want to go to the floor with it?
Yes. Pass the A1 amendment and then dual track it, send it to the floor.
Quade moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. To your bill. Dual track it. So do we need to make a motion? Do you need to make a motion to send it to the floor, and then we'll also just lay?
As amended, be recommended to pass and sent to general orders.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Senator Maye Quade. And that's it. We're just going to lay that. It's good to go. Lay it over. Thank you. Good job. Members, Wednesday, I promise not to be so. And that's it. We're just going to lay that. It's good to go. Lay it over. Wednesday, I'll have names and. So, say that again. We're going to be going to G15 on Wednesday, so. Why? I don't know why. Because when we run past 5, we got to be at the Capitol, so thank you. Late on Wednesday, so.